everyone. I am Crystal with Keen.com. Today we're going to be chatting with one of our top Keen advisors, Nicole Bowman, Live the Light, about manifestation, self-love, and goal planning. This workshop is intended to help give us actionable steps and guide us in shifting our mindset. During the session, Nicole will be sharing all about her manifestation secrets so you can make this reality your dream reality. This is part of our celebration of National Wellness Month to help you bring the wellness you want into your life now and beyond. Nicole, it is so good to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to talk about manifestation.
Yes. So, manifestation is gaining a lot of popularity, but what does it mean to you?
Well, manifestation is drawing to you what is most important for you. And this can be something tangible, like a new career, a new job, a loving relationship, but it can also be things that are intangible, like self-love, like spiritual growth, healing. So it's really about drawing to you what is best for your life.
I appreciate that. And especially with, manifestation being such a big topic when people hear it who are not very familiar with it. How is it different from from people's expectation of what manifestation is?
Mm-hmm. Well, when we're talking about expectation, that's hoping and wishing. Mm-hmm. Manifestation is actually thinking about it, planning it, feeling it, and then actually creating divine action to make it happen. So there is action involved with manifestation.
Action. Very much so. And so when you want something really bad, how do you bring it to existence? Is it about wishing for something really hard? Is it about working towards something?
It's not necessarily about wishing for it. It's more about asking yourself why you want it. Because when we ask ourselves why we want something, we know what we're willing to do to get it. Because you have to ask yourself, why do I want this thing, whatever this is? And then what am I willing to do in exchange for it? What am I willing to sacrifice? What am I willing to give in exchange for it? All of those components are connected to manifestation because when you tap into those, it feels real. And the more real it feels, the sooner it comes to you.
Those self-questions of, why do I want this? Where is it coming from? It's a lot of getting to the root of the intention. And I'm just curious, from your perspective, how closely to your intention do you need to be in order to go forward with the manifestation process?
Well, I will say you need to know what you want, but to reiterate, you need to know why you want it. Because a lot of times when people are trying to manifest something like money, for example, which is a very tangible thing, what they're actually looking for is freedom. They're looking for more time, right? So they're trying to manifest something material because they think it will give them more time, when in actuality, what they want is freedom. And if you think about it that way, it's like, well, how could I rearrange my life to be more free? Do I need to spend more time with my kids? Do I need to take time off? What do I need to do? So a lot of times it's why you want something, because when you get to the why, you know what you really want. A lot of times what we think we want is not actually it. It's actually on the surface level. What we think we want is usually not the thing. People usually want to manifest money, or maybe they want to manifest a loving relationship. What they're actually looking for is self-acceptance. They're looking to be understood. They're looking to be heard, right? Which is slightly different. So you always want to get a little bit underneath it as opposed to looking at the surface.
Yeah, like peeling those layers, getting to the core. And you mentioned self-acceptance, which is a strong concept. And with self-acceptance is a self-love. And with self-love, if this is, that core piece to a lot of the things that we're looking for in life. But when we, it can be tough to look in the mirror when we talk about self-love, when we talk about self-acceptance. So this is where we really have value. What are some steps we can take to begin to love ourselves so that manifestation process is in more flow?
Yeah, well, I like the way that you phrase that because, yes, the term self-love, it's thrown around a lot. So it's become very, very common, almost like in a way sometimes misused or overused is maybe a better way to put it. Self-acceptance is a better way Because when I accept myself, that doesn't mean I don't want to change or improve parts of myself. But I do accept that I'm lovable as I am. I do accept that I'm a good person. I do accept that if I never did anything else today, I still deserve to be loved. And one of the things that really helps with this is mirror work. Looking in your own eyes and saying, I love you. I accept you. I care about you. I care for you. The reason why is because a lot of times, and this comes from Louise Hay, who was a very famous metaphysician, she often talked about how in childhood, people would look into our eyes and tell us things. Some of these things would be true. Some of these things would be loving. Some of these things would not be. So when we look into our own eyes, we actually take our power back. And when we say these positive things that sort of counteract and counter the negative, then we're stepping into a place of power. You don't have to feel, 100% crazy about yourself today. It's like, that's not what it is. It's just try to just a little bit accept yourself where you are. Like, that's actually enough. If you can look in the mirror and say, you know what, I may not like everything, but I'm okay today in my body. My body carries me. My body takes care of me. I'm alive. You know, like sometimes you have to start with those little things and then you gradually build to something bigger.
I like the way you say mirror work. And I love that it's something that anybody who has some kind of reflection in front of them can really practice on a day-to-day. Little by little, it's very tangible. It's very actionable. And in thinking about mirror work and that reflection of the self, what are some things that people can do on a ritual level, on a very day-to-day ritual level that they can practice, where it's about that self-acceptance?
Yeah. Well, this is going to sound a little silly, but it actually works because it's difficult for your brain to do multiple things at the same time.
Right.
So one of the things is pick your favorite song, like a song that makes you come alive and embodies who you are. And as silly as it sounds, like put on like your iPod or whatever you want to do and look in the mirror and sing that song to yourself. Right? Because what's happening is you're sending your spirit out.
Yes.
You know, it sounds super silly, but while you're singing that song and trying to remember the lyrics, you don't actually have time to criticize yourself.
Oh, totally. Especially if it's something in your subconscious, and if you imagine that it's just you in the room and your mirror, then you really are singing to yourself, and yourself is singing back at you. I love that. Thank you. And a lot of times when we think about, or let me pull back a little bit. When we imagine someone in front of a mirror, that can look like a lot of things. And then even the mirror itself is sometimes synonymously used with vanity, which can be a barrier to that self-love and that self-acceptance if you think about the mirror as vanity. So what are some ways we can reclaim the image of the mirror so it is about that, like more about healing than it is about the image?
Right. Well, one of the things that I think people have to understand, and I think this does help people, to live, you must age. You're gonna age.
Yes.
You're gonna age. It's just like the reality of the situation. So if you're looking in the mirror and you look at yourself, find one thing that is beautiful to you. It could be one thing. You know what I'm saying? It could be your smile that day. It could be your eyes that day. It could be the way your hair looks that day. It could be your silhouette that day. It doesn't have to be everything. Because what you're doing when you're focusing on self-love is you're retraining your brain. You're retraining it from looking at the negative to focusing on the positive. So it does actually take time. And I will say this, you will feel like you're faking it a little bit. Like, you know, am I being phony? But you're not. You're looking for the positive. A lot of times we are trained to look at the negative or look at what's not working or look at what needs to be improved. You want to look at what is fine as it is right now. I would say in a way, certain things that are perfect as it is right now, that's actually what you're looking for. And when you train your eye and you train your brain to look for that, your confidence grows. Your ability to take up space grows. Feeling like I just need to be in a space grows. You know what I mean? Because I'm not saying that prejudices and different things don't exist. They absolutely do. I mean, that's a part of life. It's a part of the world. Insecurities, all of that is a part of it. But if you can look in the mirror and find one thing about yourself and own it and love it, that matters because you walk into a room with confidence, and that can be felt because that's your spirit.
Yes. And so say you are say you are in you're having your mirror rituals, whatever that looks like to you, whether it's listening to your favorite song and singing it back, whether it's listening to your favorite podcast and talking and just like affirming and agreeing with whatever the podcast host is saying, whatever that mirror ritual, how what does it look like in that next step of getting to that next step of the manifestation process?
Mm-hmm.
Once you've gone through that practice.
Yeah, and I love the way you said that when you mentioned podcasts, because once again, it doesn't have to be music. It could just be anything that goes into your, into your ear right here. One of the things that I would say in terms of manifestation, when you're sitting down, a good question to ask yourself is, if I knew I couldn't fail, what would I do? And that's a very powerful question, because you have to strip away everything you've been told about what you can or you can't do. And you've been told you can't be in a certain profession. You're too old to get this degree. You're too old to get married. You're too old to do this. No, if I knew I couldn't fail and there were no obstacles and there were no repercussions or consequences, et cetera, what would I do? What would I do? What would I do with my life? And
that is so powerful.
Yeah, because spirit doesn't have limitations. Like, they see us as we were meant to be, which is limitless. So when we strip away those limitations and we actually just allow our minds to go, it will typically go to what we're actually meant to do. It's normally not going to be something crazy and fantastical that we can never complete. It's typically going to be something closer to who we actually are.
I often ask myself when I catch myself with those negative self-talking kind of voices that are coming in my head, I'm usually asking myself, whose voice is this? Where is this coming from? It's like limiting self-behavior. So I love the way you say that, because when you get to the self, it's like opening doors and letting more things flow. So what kind of doors does self-acceptance open up in life?
Well, the major thing, and to be clear, self-acceptance doesn't drive away fear. Because typically, like, a lot of people think, oh, well, I shouldn't be fearful, I shouldn't be nervous, I shouldn't be this. Self-acceptance doesn't typically drive away those things, but it actually gives you the courage to feel your feelings and do what you want to do anyway. So it's like, you know what, I might be afraid, but I feel like I have a right to get this degree, where I feel like I have a right to step into this room, where I feel like I have a right to apply for this job. It gives you a level of confidence where even if you're scared, even if you feel intimidated, you know on some level that you deserve to be in the room. You deserve to take a chance. You deserve to be given a chance. So it's less about eradicating fear and worry and insecurities. It's more about, okay, I have all these things inside of me because I am human. But in spite of all of that stuff I'm feeling, I'm going to choose to act because I deserve it, because I'm worthy. That's what self-acceptance does. So it's not a fake positivity. You acknowledge everything that you feel, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, but you choose to move forward because you know you deserve to be there.
It sounds like a lot of self-acceptance looks and sounds like not worrying about validation from external sources, not worrying about affirmation from external sources, but really listening to your own voice and where it's coming from internally.
Absolutely. And if I may, I want to share a story with you because I think this will illustrate it beautifully.
Yes, please.
Yeah, there was this wonderful ballet dancer, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He was Russian. His name was Nureyev. He was this gorgeous, beautiful ballet dancer, but he was poor, right? So he didn't have the money for the tights and the shoes and all of the stuff, but he could dance. His body opened up to the music. He needed to dance. And he didn't care who was watching. He didn't care who was looking. He needed to dance. And so what he ended up doing is, halfway between going to ballet school and working in the fields, because his family was very poor, he would work in the fields and he would go to ballet class. And he observed the other dancers. And what he noticed is the dancers who stuck in it, the ones who stayed, were the ones who danced for themselves, because there was a stirring inside of them. The ones who danced for validation, or wanted the money, or wanted to win something, or wanted to win a prize, the minute that they didn't get it, they left. They left the profession. They quit. But the ones who danced because they needed to dance, they kept on dancing. And while he has since passed away, and may he rise in power, What he said is, I danced because I needed to.
Yeah.
It wasn't about people watching me, but because he needed to do it, and he was so beautiful and elegant, people watched him. And that's the other secret. When you are doing things like nobody is watching, everybody will watch you. Mm-hmm. But when you're looking for people to love you, to accept you, give me this, give me that, it shrinks you because it's not coming from inside of you. You're reaching outside of yourself to try to get something.
Thank you for that story. It did really illustrate this entire thing very beautifully. Especially, I feel it's so relevant in today's digital first age where almost everything is an audience. Almost everything from follower counts to views and likes, almost everything can be considered an audience. So to come back to that root of, coming from the self, it's really powerful. So thank you for that illustration.
No problem. Yeah.
We actually talk a lot about wellness being a holistic and a lifelong practice. So this dancer story is reminding me of that lifelong practice, to stick to it. So everyone needs to care for their mind, their body, and their spirit. How do these things play together? If someone wants to work on their wellness, where do they start?
You go wherever you're drawn. Some people will be drawn to the body first. Some people will be drawn to the mind first. Some people will be drawn to the spirit. Like for me personally, I practice yoga, and I practiced it off and on for about a decade. But when I first started practicing, my body needed it. My body needed it because my body was tired. It was inflexible. It was out of shape. It needed to open itself up. So my yoga practice started with the physical, but very quickly it turned into a meditation for me, which is mental. I was able to clear my mind. And then after that, it turned into something spiritual because yoga postures are bringing in deities. It's bringing in divine energy. It's bringing in divine force, right? So I did all of it, but it started with the physical. So I would say if you're drawn to the physical, do the physical first. Focus on the aesthetic. If you want to focus on the mind, focus on the mind. If you want to focus on spirit and have a spiritual practice and talk maybe to a minister, a rabbi, an imam, do that first. Whatever you're drawn to first, that's where you go. Because typically what happens is your hunger and your stirring expands, and it expands to incorporate all of those areas. Typically it's little by little. It's very rare that it's all at once. You're usually drawn to one and then the others fill out as they need to.
It's interesting the way that you're saying this, because it's reminding me of other things we talked about earlier on this conversation of like you go towards what you're drawn to, and that will typically invite the rest in. And so it's reminding me of, going back to your core and back to the root, and that opens up more doors. So thank you so much for that. I actually want to chime in with a viewer question. Lily Bird asks, any advice on how to stop overthinking or release myself from intrusive thoughts?
Well, okay. So, and this is a very powerful tool for meditation. Don't worry about stopping overthinking. Let the thoughts come. It's not so much a thought that come, it's what you allow to land and dwell on. So what can help you is if intrusive thoughts come in, you can counter them. Because a lot of times intrusive thoughts that come in, a lot of times there are things that aren't true, or there are things that aren't necessary in our immediate future. So if a thought is coming in like, you're not good at it, you're not this, you're not that, you can counter that with, well, let me think of a time where I did something that I didn't think I could do and I achieved it, right? Or if you have a thought, oh, that person over there doesn't like me. You don't know for sure that they don't like you. You can counter it by saying, do I know that for sure? Or is that my perception of this person, right? So when you counter the thoughts, what you'll find is they will start to fall away a little bit. And what also can help you is just a very simple seated meditation where you sit for like 5 minutes. You breathe in through the nose, you breathe out through the mouth. You let the thoughts come in, you let the thoughts come down. You don't examine them. You don't judge them. They're just there. They're just around in your head. It's kind of like a little dog that's running around and you see it doing little things, but you just let it do whatever it does and you stay focused on your meditation. Both of those things can help. I would also say, just to add something else, because typically people who have intrusive thoughts are very physical people actually. She might want to try moving meditation, like yoga, for example, where you do a repetitive movement over and over again. Because the more extensive it is and the more demanding it is, all you can think about is that movement. That's all you can think about. So the thoughts are going to go. And if you do that every day, 5, 10, 15 minutes, you're going to notice that your mind gets calmer. The thoughts do slow down. But thoughts never fully go away. We're human beings. You know, we're thinking about this and that and that. It's not so much the thoughts that come in, it's the ones that land and stay and that you dwell on. So those things that I mentioned can maybe help her to slow that down and sort of release those thoughts. But having thoughts, feelings, emotions, it is part of being human, and it doesn't make you any less spiritual. So I do think it's important to know that too.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are things I need to think about as well and put into practice. I also want to offer the idea that maybe it's not overthinking. So maybe it's about using a different word than overthinking. Because I think that when we tend to label a thought process as over or too much, we're already in a way punishing ourselves. So to maybe switch that mindset, as I like the way that you use dwell, because it illustrates this idea of you're dwelling on something maybe a little bit longer than it needs the energy expended on it. So I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, no problem. And I will also add as well, when thoughts come in, also ask yourself the honest question: can I really do anything about this right now? Because a lot of times, the answer is no. The answer is no. And a lot of times, the thing is that time will solve everything. If you have questions about a relationship, if you have questions about a job, if they're not in your life a year down the road, they're not in your life. That's the answer. Do you know what I mean? So like, you give time to unfold as well. A lot of times those thoughts, you realize, oh, I was just worried, but I couldn't have done anything about that in the moment anyway.
Yeah, so reminding yourself that there's not something that you can actually do right now is a form of releasing. It's a form of liberating yourself from the attachment of whatever is unsolved at that moment, especially if you don't have control over it right now.
Especially the things you don't have control over. Because if it's really something you can't control, meaning the way another person perceives you or what they will or won't do, if you've put your best foot forward and done everything you can do, all you can do is relinquish it and let the chips fall where they may. And if it is for you, it's going to cycle back around again in the form of an opportunity. And if it's not, it's going to leave eventually. Maybe not right away, but it will leave.
What's in alignment is in alignment, and what's not is not. You mentioned, if it's for you or if it falls into place, it's got me thinking about, our birth charts and our astrological placements and how they play into how people show up in the world. So how can we use our connection to this realm of spirituality to create a better life?
Yeah. Well, I think astrology can be very important, and it can be an extremely powerful tool for that. Now, I myself am not an astrologer, but I do study it. I study it for my own well-being, so I have some understanding of it. And one of the things that I would say is that, a lot of people, when they're brand new to astrology, they think that their sun sign, which is when they are born, is it. Like, this is who I am, this is the thing, this is it. The sun sign is more what you think you show to the world, right? So that's sort of like the outer shell. But then there's the moon sign. What is your moon sign? Because your moon sign actually reflects your internal life, right? For me, my sun sign is Leo. And I am.
That's my moon.
See, that's how I knew we knew each other. I could feel it. But my moon is in Pisces. Right? It's dreamy, it's watery, it's very emotional, it's love me, hug me. So, I have this outer side that's very shiny and seems to be very gregarious, but I'm actually extremely introverted.
Yes.
My sign is actually closer to who I really am, right? And then we also look at the rising sign. The rising sign, in a way, it can be how other people see you. So that's an aspect of it. It can also be an aspect of what you show to the world. But there are many different aspects to astrology besides those. But essentially what it is there's the part of you that you show to the world, and then there's the part of you that is space. I need my personal peace. Do you understand?
Yes.
So I recognize both. I give myself those moments of rest. I give that. And then I also have my time where I like to hang out with the people, and that's the fun side. You have to integrate both because we're multidimensional. There are many different levels to people, not just your sun sign, you're not just your moon sign, you're not just your rising sign. It is not just about where your Venus is. It's not just about that. All of it encompasses who you are as a human being. So you use the placement of the planets to understand where you were at your birth and where you're moving throughout your life. And that actually helps you to understand how you think, what you feel, what your personality is, and what your true self is.
Yes, interesting. Thank you so much for illustrating that, especially because, a lot of people I feel like a lot of people are internally or privately into astrology. I feel like it's something that everybody seeks. And so in understanding that you're not just your sun sign, that's not the only aspect of you. In a way, we're creating a better life when we're able to accept all the pieces of ourselves. So
exactly.
How's that?
If you think about the universe and you think about the planets, it's, every planet has its own experience, it has its own energy, it has its own power, it has its own message and significance and purpose. The same is true for us. Inside of us exists the power of many planets. It exists the power of many universes. So rather than just saying, oh, well, I'm just this straight, narrow, black and white type of person, I would invite people to understand that you're probably more creative than that. You're more multidimensional than that. There's many, many different sides of you. And you might think that you're super cerebral and you can never let loose, but you never know. You can be creative as well.
I like the way that you use cerebral, and it really illustrates this idea of being in your head a lot, being a little bit too heavy in the mind. Mm-hmm. It actually, Sandy Colvin is asking, how do you not get weighed down with negative people's energy? And to me, that feels a lot like absorbing energy through being too cerebral, thinking too much about other people. So mm-hmm. I'll repeat the question. Sandy Colvin asks, how do you not get weighed down with negative people's energy?
Mm-hmm. With negative people's energy. There's a couple of different things, and this is easier said than done, just to be clear. But one of the things we have to learn, especially as highly sensitive people, if you identify as an empath or a psychic or a medium or a spiritual worker, you cannot take what people do to you personally. Part of the reason that we get weighted down by people's energy is because sometimes we're taking whatever they're doing, saying, acting, or feeling as a personal attack on us. I'm not saying that sometimes it isn't, sometimes it is. But other times you're dealing with people that are ungrounded, they're unfocused, they don't know who they are, they're not spiritually or self-aware, and they're just flinging their energy all over the place. So the first thing is, when you feel that energy coming in, remind yourself, this isn't mine. It's a mental thing. This is not mine. And I don't have to accept it. And I also, whatever this person is saying or doing or seems to be doing to me, I don't have to take it as an attack on me. Now, I'm not saying take abuse or accept mistreatment. You always stand up for yourself, but you don't internalize what people are throwing your way. The other thing, though, as well, is, and this is the most uncomfortable part of it, you have to start learning to say no. Yes. Because a lot of times we think we're being nice by just being polite, or we do little things like nonverbal cues to make people get the hint. Doesn't work. Not in 2021. In 2021, you have to stand 10 toes down, full-throated, and say what you mean and mean what you say. Because when you put it all out on the table, it can't be argued with as easily. So another part of this is pay attention to who's around you and who you feel uplifted by and who you feel drained by.
Yes.
You have to start limiting your interactions with people. Some people you can't totally limit it. They might be your family, coworkers, etc. But you can limit it to a degree. You can keep the conversations pedestrian. You can keep the conversations about the weather, about mundane things. But if you're trying to have heart-to-hearts with people who are committed to misunderstanding you, your energy is going to get drained. If you're allowing people to come over unannounced, or you're answering your phone every time it rings, your energy is going to get drained. So part of it is highly sensitive people is you have to learn how to turn the phone off. You have to learn how to say no. And understand people are going to get mad, because if you're a highly sensitive person, people have been having access to your energy for a really long time. And so when you tell them no, they're going to get upset. they're responsible for their own reaction. They're responsible for their own emotions. And the hardest thing for those of us who are sensitive is to practice a level of detachment. It's almost like if you have a child and they have their little temper tantrum on the floor, you want to run in and rescue them so much, but you can't. Let them have it, let them cry it out, let them pound it out. And then after that, you scoop them up and you hug them and you tell them you love them.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with people who try to bombard you with their energy. So sometimes you have to be firm. Sometimes you have to tell people no.
And I appreciate that you mentioned that that draining imagery too, because as you were speaking, I also was feeling that that response to the question is like, no can be a boundary. No can be an actual, it's like a spell boundary. When you say no, you're literally putting your guardrails up on your energy. And then the image of draining energy is like a battery. If we're going to think about like the image of the device and the battery, if you're using it all the time, if people have access to you all the time, you're going to have to recharge. You're going to have to recharge. So would you say that recharging is another piece of the manifestation process to get to a goal?
Yeah, recharging is definitely a part of it. This is something that I sort of mentioned in a way before, which is for me, one of the ways that I recharge is I take the Sabbath. I take a day of rest. It's a respite. You don't have to be religious or spiritual to take a day of rest. But what I do is Friday at sunset, I stop everything. I don't work. And then Saturday at sunset, I resume everything. And what that does for me is that it allows me to rest, it allows me to sleep, it allows me to pray, it allows me to just sort of be with myself, have a good meal, just chill out, relax, and I don't have to think about the issues and problems of the world for a while. And even if you can't take an entire 24 hours, even if it's an hour, even if it's 20 minutes where you're just by yourself, because I know for some people it's hard, you don't have the time because so many people are demanding of you. But even if you can take that 10 to 15, 20 minutes, that is very helpful. And I will also say as well, in terms of spiritual protection, your words are powerful. Your intention is powerful. So when you go out, before you go out, set the intention in the prayer. I choose to connect with people who see my light and respect my light. Anybody who is not in alignment with that, I'm not going to spend very much time with them. The more you set that type of intention, you'll see, and it really does work, because this is something that I do. And then the times that I don't do it, I'm like, oh,
Did I set my intention? Did I set my protection?
Well, I'm like, why is everybody talking to me today? Like I've heard everything, and now I feel like I need to go to the hospital with her over there. But when you set your intention, what it is it's just what you said about the protection, the guardrails, and kind of like a spell. It is that because people who are not in alignment with where you're vibrating at, I'm not saying they won't come in, but it's going to be a lot harder for them to get to you because the people who are in alignment are going to recognize you faster. So you're going to connect with them over the people that are not on the same alignment.
Yeah, they see you. They see you, and that's really powerful, because when you're able to see someone without having to have a lot of words, then you're really just vibing off the energy.
Absolutely.
You mentioned, you take the Sabbath and it's part of your practice, that rest and recharge. How have you noticed that practice in your life? How have you noticed it make changes for the better?
So many changes. Number one, my dreams are more vivid. I remember my dreams. And my dreams do tend to be prophetic, or they tend to be metaphorical. So my dreams are telling me what's going on and what's going to happen. The other thing too is I'm just more relaxed. I'm just more relaxed. You know what I mean? I'm not on edge all the time. And what I've also learned is it's helped me to understand like what I view as most important. You know what I mean? Because if you're always on the go and your phone is always on and your computer is always on and people are always pulling at you, everything feels like an emergency. And when you take that, does that make, you realize that certain things are not as important as what you thought they were. And I think I would also say, finally, I think taking the Sabbath is a way of practicing self-love. It really is. Because I've worked hard this entire week. I too deserve to rest. It's a way of connecting with the divine. I deserve to connect with the divine. If I want to light candles, if I want to pray, whatever that looks like, it's different for everybody, right? I want to be with my family. I want to have a good Friday night meal. It could be all of those things. But when you take that time in that moment and you honor yourself and you treat yourself well, it also educates other people on how to treat you.
Yes.
Because it's taking a moment to love yourself.
Yes. So it sounds like, with this practice, what we hope is that everyone who's watching this and everyone who's learning from this is that even if it's not the Sabbath, it's that template of being able to have your rest time, have your intentional rest time, have your recharge time. Really set that out and carve that out and build that practice into your day to day.
Absolutely. And it's just what you said. You can take the Sabbath and take that word out of it. And just as you said, plug in whatever that is for you, whatever rest is for you, and do that, because for some people, it's not exactly rest. It might be exercise.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Very true. And that's not wrong. And that's not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very much so. Well, Nicole, I think that covers today's session and workshop. I had such a lovely time speaking with you and learning from you and vibing off your energy. I feel like I have actionable things that I can put into my own practice. And I also feel affirmed by some things that I already am doing by just hearing you vocalize it. Yes, and I hope that our viewers are able to have this and they can reference anytime they need to for that extra boost of energy and those tips. And so I just want to thank you so much. And I hope let's see, it's Leo season, so it's the season for you right now. And Friday is tomorrow, so thank you so much for your time. Appreciate that we were able to catch you. And yeah, just thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I'm wishing everybody many blessings, and thank you again. Thank you again, and enjoy your weekend, everyone.
Yes. Bye now.
All right, take care.